Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of ABM Answered, the quickfire demand generation slash ABM video series, or at least that's what I'm aiming for. I'm here with Brandon, who is totally capable of introducing himself in a second, but to give a short overview of the concept of this series, Brandon, in this case, will be given 7 questions to respond to, all about account-based marketing. The questions themselves, Brandon and his cat, the questions themselves have come from or been adapted based on the challenges we've collected using mixed reality rooms, where over 1,000 marketers have gone through and stated what their biggest headaches are at the moment with Demand Gen and ABM. So, yes, Brandon, I'll hand it over to you to give an intro.
Yeah, hi. Brandon Alisoglu here, along with Chloe, who apparently really wants to make her presence known. Anytime I'm on a video call for work, she's got to at least get in there once. So we should be good now. But yeah, I've
Nice.
been in ABM now for a couple years. Came by it because, well, we needed to. We were driving leads and it wasn't working. So you got to find those right target accounts. And it's been a fun journey. It's really taken everything I've learned from digital marketing in the past and really applied it in a concentrated effort. So, yeah, I enjoy it.
Awesome. It's definitely a trending vertical, that's for sure. Diving straight in as well, and off the back of that, so problem one that kind of came in was identifying the right target accounts. So the question that I'll throw back at you, I guess, is what tools or techniques do you use to kind of identify and select your target accounts, and how do you prioritize them?
Yeah, it's like I kind of hinted at it, and I probably did it subconsciously, knowing that was going to be the first question. But making sure that they can pay for your product is a very important first step. That's how I got here in the first place. We were driving all sorts of MQLs and not really closing, and it turned out we were just way more expensive than our competitors. Which meant obviously we needed to go find the people that could afford us and needed all the bells and whistles. And that was when I was at Thought Industries. So it was, it's, I'd say it's step number one. But as far as you define your ICP, and in that case, we're using demand base, we were able to work with a great RevOps team who just created one little, not a radio button, but that click it on or click it off, or they fit ICP or don't. And so when it pulls over to your ABM platform, just filter on down to those bad boys, and you've got a great start. As far as the ones that are in market or who you want to prioritize with the first go, I mean, you're looking at engagement with your website, your marketing materials. It's very easy to get into, oh, well, here's some third-party intent, and that's something I'll bring up later for a very specific question at the very end. But it's not where I focus. It's something I will use as kind of more of a directional thing, maybe a tiebreaker between two accounts. But it's always about, do you know who we are and what we do? Okay, you're going to be my first foray into ABM, rather than there's the Roomba accounts, as Hilly Harpeo talks about, that you're always trying to get into. But as far as who I'm going after right away, it's whoever knows about us and is interacting with us, and we know that we can put some wins on the board to build out the rest of the program.
Nice. I love that as well, how you decided not to go into a pricing war or a bidding war and go a race to the bottom. You were like, let's set ourselves apart and go for the people that can afford us. Because I think my default, to be honest, would probably have gone like in a pricing war, which is never the correct way to go from a marketing standpoint, really, is there? It's just, yeah. So lose-lose.
If you have to market on price, you're not going to market well. It's just what it comes down to.
I think I learned that too late. I read it in a Rory Sutherland book on like consumer psychology or something. But anyway, sorry, Speedy Gonzalez here. Problem 2, personalization at scale. So it's kind of an oxymoron, right? Personalization at scale. But like, what strategies do you use as a marketer to kind of effectively personalize your ABM campaigns, perhaps without compromising on quality?
Yeah, and I think I'm going to cheat a little bit on the question, but you're getting your money's worth for what I think I'm getting paid to be here. I think I'm getting scale, right? But
Yeah.
but I unfortunately didn't have the option to bring on, the cool parts of what was demand based at that time, the personalization. Well, it's still demand based, but the tool I was using, add on for them, or something like Mutiny, where it's they see they're de-anonymizing who's on your site, and then they're tailoring the website to that particular vertical or account. No, those are great. Like, I'm not taking anything away from that, but this is more, if you have to get down and dirty with it, then that's where you just take those one to few campaigns and really drill down, so that you're not so much saying, hey, company A, or hey, Coca-Cola, being specific about it, but hey, vertical, or I's company, that maybe you can even add in a couple extra qualifiers for it when you're filtering down to that one to few. So now it's more about personalizing it in a way that's generic almost, if that makes sense. And I know it's another oxymoron, like personalization at scale, but in order to do it without having that crazy budget to buy all the cool tools, which by all means do it if you have the ability. I want to play with them eventually as well. It's really about finding the ways that you can personalize it in the sense that the largest segment of accounts possible, and that's what I found to really hit the hammer, or hit the nail on the head with the hammer, to the fact that these are your pain points. We know you share them. We know this is how you talk about yourself in your category. So put those two together, and now they think we're talking directly to them and that it's personalized for them.
That's super interesting. So I've got a contact, and they've been going for a couple of years, but they set up an agency all around kind of a one to few approach rather than a one to one approach. Purely, they ran the numbers, and that was more ROI effective than going down that one to one approach by like kind of clustering, as you're saying.
Interesting.
Awesome. Problem three: creating engaging and relevant content. Um, well, it's kind of along the lines of personalization at scale, but like what's kind of your methods to creating content and personalizing that content, if you can expand on your last question.
Yeah, a friend of mine at Thought Industries, coworker, friend, whatever we want to call him, but he's pretty cool, so I like him. But Tyler, he really put me on
Nice.
about Descript, and that was before I really understood all of the different abilities of video apps to provide those transcriptions, and to be able to use and to even edit them, directly in the app, where you're editing the transcript, it edits the video as well. It's like, oh, so then we could take that and turn around and start talking to salespeople to collect their answers to common questions they're hearing for certain types of companies. And now we've turned what's usually an intensive process of, I got to listen to that chorus call or whatever to find the questions, to write it out, and then have the content team work on it to, hey, can I get 15 minutes? Here's a couple questions. Here's the answers to them. Now I can go take that content and talk directly to their accounts. And that's the beauty of ABM. Since you're working with sales, they're going to know who we're talking about, and they're going to want to be able to talk to them. So this gives them the chance to kind of do that, or without having to try to get them on the phone, which, as we know, is it's an art, a science. It's a crapshoot. So this allows them to do it, and it really helps us pump up the amount of content that we can create that is that personalized at scale type of feel. Actually, it reminds me of Hollywood. How if they can't afford, probably not Hollywood's the right way to say it, but somebody, if they can't afford the rights to the music, they do. Oh, it feels like a Green Day song. So it's very similar to that approach.
Nice. I didn't do this on purpose, but it kind of ties into the next question, which is the challenge was sales and marketing alignment. But maybe what you can address as well on that is, what kind of cadence do you work to? So clearly you're getting feedback from like the SDRs or the sales team from their calls, like on the ground. How quickly do you kind of like turn around those like that content, that personalized content, from kind of hearing the call to, is it like 1 week, is it a month, is it every quarter, is it within days, and then back to the original problem, sales and marketing alignment. How do you align sales and marketing teams?
Yeah, as far as the timing, one, I actually just did this yesterday. Collected some answers to some questions. Today, I'm just going to do my, it's not a pretty term, but the vomit draft, and just get it out there. And then I will clean it up probably early next week. So about a week, and it's not going to be an extensive piece of content, but it's something that speaks directly to those pain points. So about a week is usually what I can do. But I mean, there are things too that, as much as we'd love to churn and burning, really get that content out, it could take a month, particularly if it's something that we don't have a great viewpoint on as a company. So if I'm getting multiple different answers, then it's all right. We need to bring in the C-suite or somebody to be like, what is our viewpoint on this particular article or particular problem or question that we're hearing, and which is also provides great feedback for sales, and that's part of that alignment that we were just discussing, and is the point of this question. um, I start every campaign by talking to the salespeople. I don't really do a ton of work ahead of that unless I have an idea, because if they're not excited about the campaign I'm going to be running to their accounts, there's no point in me putting together a bunch of efforts and then showing up and having them go, okay, because they're not going to work it as hard. And it's not the traditional marketing and sales rivalry that I'm trying to spark here so much as saying it's human nature. If you give me projects to do that I'm not excited about, I'll do them eventually, but I may not really. I'm not going to attack them with the same gusto. I'm not going to think about them when I'm walking the dog. And so that's really getting that alignment right up front is huge. And then from there, it's sometimes it might be a couple weeks of having to do research and figure out. I'm kind of in this situation right now where I met with them a couple weeks ago. I'm new at the company, so I've got to find the content and find where we are with certain things, and I know I need to build things, content, the ads themselves, all kinds of good stuff. So I created a brief with all of the angles and the target accounts and what we're going to do, without the timeline because I can't stick to that quite yet. And I just recorded a quick loom. I've never done that before. I have a buddy who does that for everything, for audits and stuff, and it's a great tool. I just always said I will do it, and I never have. And yesterday, I finally was like, all right, just give it a go, and they loved it. I got a response back, 3 different people, different times of the day. They were able to do it when they needed to, and now I got the feedback I needed to carry on.
Problem 5 that came in was transitioning from traditional lead generation to an account-based approach can face some internal resistance. So my question to you would be, what are kind of like the most effective ways to overcome internal resistance and kind of foster culture around, this new ABM approach or method?
Yeah, there's a few prongs that are necessary, or maybe it's a three-legged stool and you need all 3 of them. But in particular, is you got to have some executive buy-in. Hopefully, your CMO and chief revenue officer in particular would be great. Those are quite influential, but that'll help set the stage and keep the C-suite on target of what we're really trying to accomplish here, which isn't so much drive a bunch of leads and call a bunch of numbers that may or may not be fake, but create pipeline, create opportunities, and find actual people that are in market to buy your solution. The other side is start small. Just find 1 or 2 sales reps who understand it, or at least seem willing to try your approach, particularly in the sense of we're not trying to hurt you. We're trying to help you, and we're trying to create a better system because of what we're doing. And that's where internal education is kind of that third stool third leg of the stool there that I was talking about, in the sense of why we're doing it. Make sure people know. Quick decks and a Loom video can be super helpful there, of just, we're doing this to help you make more money, sales folks, because you're going to convert more opportunities and take that pipeline and turn it into revenue at a much higher conversion rate, and thus your checks will be bigger. So that's always a great way to motivate people. Find what their goals are. In this case, we know it's to make money. So it's really bringing the executives on board, making sure that it's a top-down understood approach, starting small so that you're not kind of all over the place and not focusing and learning from those first few instances. And then also making sure that folks understand why you're doing it, and it's to help them. It's to serve them.
Nice. Well, you covered that pretty extensively. I was thinking about it as well. I think about it quite a lot as well, especially when I first started kind of learning about ABM. You read all these articles about, ABM increases revenues by X amount, or reduces deal flow, what's it called, deal velocity by this, increases deal velocity by this much. But it's still hard to believe until you've actually kind of entrenched yourself in it. So I think definitely the starting small, piloting small. And what would a pilot, like a small kind of starting small, look like? Would it just be getting like a handful of accounts, as in like 5 or 10 accounts, or what is a small ABM program?
Yeah, I think it's, well, again, it depends on what your offering is, it kind of what your sales cycle looks like. Because if you have a very long sales cycle and it's intricate and all these touch points, you can't, like as you were kind of intimating there, target 50 accounts and expect to have good things happen. I
Yeah.
do prefer that one to few approach of finding about 8 to 12. Seems to be the sweet spot
Mhm.
for some reason for me. That all of my campaigns in that sense have always had about somewhere between there. Find those similarities and really start honing the messaging in for that one vertical. And then once you really could build on that and show the value of that and take that internal education, go see Sam over there just made a bunch of money because this is the approach we took. Would you like us to do that for you? And you'll get a lot of guesses.
Nice. We can't be talking about the same Sam, but eight, 8 to 12 is the magic numbers, right? Okay, I'm gonna steal that one. Um, Problem 6, kind of to the same point, tracking and reporting return on investment. So what are your best practices for kind of tracking ROI when, like ABM can be multi-channel? How do you kind of bring all of those kind of tools, that tech stack, all those touch points, engagements together to monitor whether your ABM program is being effective?
It's a big question and one that I've seen really bring down programs in the past because you spend so much time getting bogged down to how do we get Salesforce to talk to this particular platform and make sure that we're stamping these accounts in a certain way. And there are great workarounds. I know I talk about demand-based select because that was my major experience, but they also had a great in-house team that really helped us set up things like that. But it's really keeping it simple, particularly in the beginning, is these are the accounts that touched ABM, these are the accounts that didn't, and how are they performing. And that's really how you could show, okay, this, make it relative, don't make it a pure, we spent this money, we got this out of it. Now we can do that to a degree of, also we spent this much money in our ABM campaigns, we should kind of know what we're spending on our platform, on people, content, ad spend, all that stuff, and say, okay, out of all of the accounts we targeted, this is how much revenue or pipeline we were able to generate off of what our costs were. But I really find that the relative part, building on the last problem we had, is extremely vital to building that internal trust, because it's usually pretty blatant. I mean, we're talking 300, 400% more meetings and pipelines and whatever it might be when you use that ABM approach. And it makes sense because if you are just kind of hollering into the wind versus having one-on-one conversations with people, you're going to win more hearts. Although
Mhm.
it's like the old I never understood construction crew workers who whistled or hollered at women. I'm like, did this work? Where does this work? Okay, so it's kind of that same approach of what are
That's a
you
good
doing
point,
here?
actually. That's a very, very good point. There must be a study, or ChatGPT might know the answer to that one, but never thought about that. Interesting what you said about marketing systems like speaking to each other as well. I didn't realize until this week, where I spoke to, I think what was her role? It was like marketing operations or something. Her sole role was getting systems and campaigns to all just like speak to each other um, correctly, and like when they upload new campaigns, make sure they all run smoothly. And I just found that like fascinating. But yeah, when you're dealing with such big kind of technologies, I guess that makes total sense as well. Final question, Brandon. And this is a great, great question. It's a spin off of that famous Snog, Marry, Avoid, I think,
Mhm.
question. It came in from Karina Owens. What in ABM should you contract, fire, and scale?
The easiest part for me here is design for contracting. It's just not my wheelhouse. So I'm making this question personal to me. I could spend a lot of time putting in these prompts into an AI design platform to try to figure this out. But the 80-20 rule, that's just not going to drive us forward at any sort of pace that any manager or executive is going to be okay with. So for me, it's the design. Let me build the campaigns, and I can write some content and whatnot. Scaling, I think that's got to be your content. And I know that almost seems antithetical to context. You want to make sure that you're creating it in a personalized sense. You want to make sure that you're creating really solid, helpful content, but you have to be able to take that, repurpose it, and put it wherever you need to have those types of messages, find what works and resonates, and then start scaling that out into every other vertical and medium that you can. Fire is an interesting word, and it's a bit controversial in the sense that we kind of need it, but we kind of don't. I hate intent data. I love it. I need it. I hate it. There was, in fact, one of the major players that we use, that I have used, and I was clicking around looking through the intent on it, or for our company, and I noticed that there was somebody from my law school that was on our website. I'm like, that makes no sense. Our solution isn't for a law school. Like, why would they be on there? I realized it was me. I have no association with that law school anymore, except for the fact that I graduated 14 years ago. So the fact that a rep could go in there and be like, hey, look, we've got somebody from this particular university on our website. Let's reach out and contact these folks. Like, no, there's nobody there. It's me. So it's got to be intent data for me.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I'm meant to be neutral in this, but I'd probably be exactly the same on the fire one there. And especially if you've had a personal experience of like picking holes in it as well. I'm always curious as to like where this information comes from. And I know people are always like, let's focus on the outcomes. It doesn't matter where it comes from. We just want people to buy our services. But look behind my magic curtain,
Yeah.
and all these customers are waiting for you. Come on. Great response. Final question that I'll ask for. Well, no, actually, do you have a question for our next guest that you would like me to ask?
It's a bit technical and down in the weeds, but I'm very curious how other people are approaching email opens in their scoring systems now. With all of the new technologies coming on board, security, did they actually open that email? Because before we would count the email open as 1/10 of a point, whereas in 5 points was the biggest one as far as if you went to a product page or a demo page. But then we realized like we were triggering accounts into higher and higher tiers based off a bunch of email opens that probably didn't happen due to security software. I don't know if you wanted me to answer the question as well, but that's why I was curious why.
No, I'm. If you can, answer it, because I won't give them context from your answer. But that's a really interesting question, and I think actually I know if I can get them on the show who I'll ask that to. But yeah, what's your response to that?
A big I don't know, and that's why I'm asking probably. But it was the last test I've run so far was to really drop it way down. I'm talking like 1/1,000,000th of a point, so that it's there. We know that it's an activity, and maybe we can look at it directionally, or if there's a specific content that we've been talking to, maybe we can use that to see, okay, are they interacting with us? But at this point, it's a big black box that I'm not sure what's inside, and we just I need someone smarter than me to figure this one out.
That's how I feel on the show all the time, just asking the questions. Well, I will get that locked in, but thank you so much for joining, Brandon, and I'll
Yeah, thanks,
see you
Sam.
soon.